So I think that if you were actually trying to cover a lot of space, you would definitely use the chisel. And then when you're trying to get in those nice fine details, you can just come in with the brush, right? Because it is nice and soft, and you can really get that in there and have it feather out and stuff like that. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Is It Worth It, where I go around the world and the internet looking for art supplies to help you with the craft or just to make it this much more enjoyable. And today we are going to a marker that everyone knows. Everyone has been hitting me up about. They're like, you should try these markers, you should try these markers. And so now's the time to check this out. Now, I have done these markers before, but they were the Copic sketch markers, and today we are trying the Copic Ciao markers. And so we're gonna try these out. I am not necessarily someone who goes after Copics for a couple reasons, but I definitely want to check these out because so many people talk so highly of them that I thought that you know what, we need to give it a shot. Let's see how these perform, and let's see if they're worth it. Come on, let's go. All right, so as you can see, once again, we have a regular, just plastic container. Nothing fancy, lets you get to see the markers. Got your color palette, right? Hopefully that you can see how they're supposed to blend together, which is one of the main reasons why I picked these up, because they are supposed to blend together. You know, dual tipped, refillable alcohol ink markers. So that is something that puts these above a lot of the markers that we've reviewed so far. They are refillable, and that is a plus. But I mean, yeah, let's go ahead and see what's in here. All right. So these are round, so they're very round markers. They're actually a lot thicker than I thought they were when they were in the container. So it actually does have a nice feel to it. It does have a plasticky feel, so it does feel a bit more plastic than some of the other markers that we have had, but it has a nice weight to it, so it definitely feels as though it's a sturdy marker. The nib looks nice and sharp. It's a bit smaller than most, and I think that's what these are, the Cios. They're meant to be more portable and take up less space, so not everything is as big. Now, there's a very nice snap, right? Very strong snap. Right, the brush is nice and thick, looks really nice. Seems to have a nice give, but still firmness to it. Cap is good. Fits on the back, right? And I think both of them do. Right, and it's got a nice snug fit, so that's really nice. Not a strong smell. There's not that strong alcohol smell that's normally with a lot of markers. So they seem nice. Like I said, they're a bit thicker than I thought they were. So I'm actually very eager to see what they're gonna be like. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Okay, so I guess we'll try the light one first and see if it even shows up. So it flows really nicely, but I mean, this color, I don't know what it's gonna dry like. It might be a nice little light brown, but you can tell that the color that you see, at least on the brush and the cap, and what actually comes out are different. So what I'm realizing right now is that the brush is actually really soft. So it has a lot of give that goes with it, but you are able to create a very nice thin line. But as you can see with some of the, when it touches the paper, it lets out a lot of ink unless you're hitting it more from the side of the brush. So if you're actually trying to come in from the tip, you got to be careful because it will put out a lot of ink. So that's a nice touch. Okay, and so as it's actually drying, So with the brush, you actually get to see it dry a lot quicker. And so as it's drying, you do get that nice pink, you know, that like tan color that comes out of it. So that's good. And so don't freak out when you use like the chisel and you put down a lot of ink, because it does dry to the color that's mostly what I would say on the brush, not necessarily, well, no, it's pretty close to the cap, right? And what I see a lot of people doing is that they'll, you know, they use the brush to fill in areas, and it's just, look at that difference, right? You probably can't even see that. All right, so it's super light in that instance. So, you know, let's see if we can help you out a little bit. There we go. All right, so now you should be able to see it, right? You can see at least this part right here, right? It's really light, and when it comes out on the paper, it's really, really dark. But so it's a very light color. So I mean, that it holds up to the color that it says that it looks like right there. All right. So as we move forward, we'll start seeing a lot. The colors will come out nice and dark, but I think as they dry, they'll actually be what the cap looks like. So that's pretty cool. But I have to say, like, a lot of ink does come out of the brush, so you don't have to really worry about the ink not coming out or flowing. It does have a nice flow to the ink. The colors are nice and saturated. When they dry, they definitely hit more of what the tip looks like. But the brush itself is very soft, so it allows for a lot of flexibility when you're kind of flicking. And what I'm going to be interested to see is how it translates with these nice darker lines here, and how then once it dries out, what that's going to look like. Because once again, the color of the actual color of the cap really does relate to the color that it dries to, which is a huge plus. Like, you can't even deny that. So the cap, the color that you have on the cap, is pretty much the color that you are going to get once everything dries up, right? And everything is staying pretty darn consistent as far as, you know, the brush. So the chisel tip is very, very strong, lets out the ink really nicely. The brush has a lot of flexibility to it. It does give you a lot of variation within the line, but the one thing that I've noticed is how it will give you a lot of ink when you first put it down. And so there's a pretty strong transition between when you first start and then when it goes away. So let's see if you got those light colors are really hard to see. All right. But yeah, the ink comes out really fast, really nice. So I think that if you were actually trying to cover a lot of space, you would definitely use the chisel. And then when you're trying to get in those nice fine details, you can just come in with the brush, right? Because it is nice and soft, and you can really get that in there and have it feather out and stuff like that. So I am impressed. Like I said, when a cap and the color of the ink actually match each other, that's huge for me, because it's just so much. I don't have to constantly test the colors. I don't have to constantly come back and be like, oh, I don't know if that's gonna be that orange or that red or that yellow. I can look at the cap and go, no, that's pretty much what it's gonna dry to, right? And that is a really big thing for me, right? And so, and you can see, my big thing is going to be how does it you know, like what I was saying, like when it dries here like that, right? So you can't flick it out. So having it layered on top of things is going to be what it's really known for, right? The Copics are really known for its blendability and stuff like that. So I'm very interested to see just how well they blend with each other. But once again, as I said, it is very consistent. You can get some really thin lines, you can get some really thick lines, you've got nice feathering, right? The only thing you got to worry about is, like I said, at the very beginning, it'll give you a lot more ink as you pull it across the paper, right? And depending on how, I mean, with weight, right? Like you could come across and it seems like it gives it all the same color if you push down on it, right? But if you're trying to flick it out, right, it will give this gradation that comes across. So let's see. So we have this one, like this pink doesn't seem like it really flows very well because it's a very reddish pink. So I don't think that's gonna really flow too nicely. So we're gonna try these colors. I'm gonna see what happens. All right, so we're gonna just kind of come in with the brush. Overlap a little bit. And then once it dries, we'll see what, we're gonna see how it really comes together. All right, and then we'll try this brown here. We'll try and blend it with this brown here, which might be a bit too dark. Seems like a pretty big jump though. All right, but and I know that they normally have a colorless blender, but you know how we do with that, right? We just kind of come through with the color, the light color. We'll just hit it halfway through. We're just gonna go over everything, try and blend it all together. All right, we'll see what happens. See, like this one didn't, because they're too strong, they're too far apart. But it did look like these really did go nicely together. All right, I think I may have. We'll do it again. I'll put that there, and then it was this one. And I think that the jump might still be a bit too strong, possibly. Right between the last one. That might be what's going on, but we're gonna see. All right, so I got that. And then of course, we're gonna have to do the marker, the test. Should I even have a Copic, so we can try the Copic liner with it as well. This one, and this one. Okay, so we've got Tombow, then Stadler, Copic, Castell, and then lastly we got Micron, right? And so we're just gonna go over it with all these colors real quick and see how they interact with each other. All right, not trying to do too much. Oh, actually, you know what? We should use the brush. Okay. Just gonna use all of them since there's so few. So as we come back to the colors, right? So I think like these two, right, that are a lot closer in color, right? They blend very nicely. But then I think that the jump from this color to this color was too big. And so that's why we have this weird like breaking up apart, because from here to here is a nice transition, but from here to here is not. And so, I mean, that just comes from every type of marker, right? Like you have to make sure that you get the nice gradation as you go over, and if you're trying to get this seamless blend, you have to make sure that you get the colors that are close together so that they will actually have a nice blend. But you cannot argue that when they are close together, you can get this very, very nice blend going from a lighter to a slightly darker, right? And so if you had the next one in line, you'd have a real nice transition, right? It's the same thing that you have here, right? Like it was just too big of a jump, so they couldn't blend together. And I'm sure you could probably go over it again with like the brown, maybe, right? And try and make it blend a little bit, and try and make it a little bit darker as it blends in. But for the most part, you're just gonna wanna make sure you get the colors. And I think that there are plenty of them, that Copic has plenty of markers that will allow you to have a real nice transition if that's the kind of art that you're doing. Now, let's see about the smear, if we have any. So it looks like the Tombow's fine, Copic is naturally fine, right? And you're like, all right, that makes sense. Faber-Castell smears on some of the lighter colors, and then Staedtler smears on this orangey, on this orangey color. So, like I said, Micron smears on pretty much all of them. So Copics and Microns apparently do not like each other very much. The Faber-Castell is really only on this one where it's pulling. Copic is fine all the way across, which makes absolute sense. Staedtler only is pulling on this orange color, this reddish orange color, and then the Tombow pen is absolutely fine. So there you go. You've got a couple of fine liners that you can use, and a nice, I mean, that's just a nice blend. It happened here too. So there you go. All right, so we just got done reviewing the Copic Ciao markers, and you know what? They're not horrible. They're not bad at all. I think that the chisel tip is actually really strong, puts out a whole bunch of ink. That's pretty good. The brush is not something that I necessarily would like. It's a bit too soft for me, so there's not as much control as I would like. But you know what? Besides that, and you know, some like personal things as far as I'm like, I don't know if Copics is for me. These are actually really good. You know, so if you're looking for a softer brush to get nice variations within your line, you're looking for a marker that can actually put out a lot of ink and give you the color that the cap says. Like that one for me is huge. That the cap color is the color that the ink will dry. That's huge for me, right? So I do appreciate Copic for being able to make that happen. So these are some good markers. You do have to understand they are a bit pricey, but you can refill them, which then cuts down on the cost. So like I said, if you're looking for a really strong marker that the colors are vibrant and work well together and has a flexible brush, these are really good. You should pick these up. So these, like I said, these are good. These are good, so these are with it. I would definitely check these out. They're definitely worth a try, and then you get to figure out whether you want that kind of brush or that kind of ink for yourself. But as far as a review goes, these markers were really good. Well, that wraps up today's episode. I hope that you learned something from it or was able to see just how good this would fit in your artistic arsenal if you decide to go get it. Now, if you would like to make a suggestion for what I should be reviewing in the future, please drop me a comment below and I will gladly add it to the list and we will review that right away. If for whatever reason you are new to this channel, thank you so much for stopping by, and please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the bell so that you get notified as soon as I actually upload more content. Thank you guys so very much, and I will see you at the next episode.